2 minutes before the top of the hour, welcome to the fourth hour of Morning Joe with breaking news at 6 a.m. on the West Coast and 9 a.m. in the East. Live pictures from Los Angeles County, where wildfires broke out due to a dangerous windstorm and dry conditions in the area. The Palisades fire rapidly expanded by thousands of acres over the course of just a few hours. As of last night, the fire burned roughly 3,000 acres of land with roughly 50,000 people ordered to evacuate. As of this morning, the LA County Fire Department reports the fires are 0% contained. Wildfires also broke out roughly 30 miles east near Pasadena. No injuries or deaths have been reported in either fires as of this morning. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency, and President Biden, who is in Los Angeles this morning for previously scheduled events, has been briefed on the wildfires, while FEMA has already approved aid to try and combat them. But that's the issue with these wind gusts reported potentially up to 100 miles per hour as we get into today. Joining us now, the mayor of Santa Monica, California, Lorna Negretti. Madam Mayor, what is the latest? What are you hearing about the conditions there?
Well, as of now, the evacuation orders are unchanged in Santa Monica. We are awaiting an update from the command post this morning. Thanks to LA City and LA County for the support in leading this incident, as it is their incident. And just to our Santa Monica community, our fire department, who's providing mutual aid, of course, and then all of our regional partners. But at this moment, our evacuation has remained unchanged, which is the northern part of Santa Monica. We had a mandatory evacuation from San Vicente Boulevard in north and a voluntary evacuation order for Montana Avenue to San Vicente Boulevard.
So I just reported that it's being reported that these fires are 0% contained. What are you being told about exactly where they could go next and what is at risk?
Well, we're not being told where they could go next. I mean, as you all know, we have no way of predicting the wind and which direction they will burn. Right now, our Santa Monica Canyon is safe. That could change at any moment, obviously. Again, we are getting regular updates from the fire command post. We haven't gotten one. As of 5:30 a.m., this is the information I have, so we haven't gotten our next update yet. So Currently, there's no changes yet. And Santa Monica and the urban city is safe, and in our canyon so far.
Madam Mayor, could you tell us a little bit about the conditions that led to this fire being so explosive and spreading so quickly? We know about the winds, and also just in terms of resources. In Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica, there, fire department personnel, emergency responders, are they able to get to where they need to go because of so many roads are blocked due to the fires or people trying to flee?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw video footage of bulldozers plowing cars on Sunset Boulevard to make way because people had abandoned their cars in order to escape from Pacific Palisades. So we were messaging out through all of our platforms using our Santa Monica Alert and all our social medias to make sure that people stayed cleared of roads that weren't necessarily blocked at that point, but we wanted to make way for emergency responders. And that was fairly successful, at least obviously in the Santa Monica area. We weren't having that problem with blocked roadways. However, I'm sure, as I mentioned, you saw that cars did have to be plowed out of the way for emergency responders to reach those areas. And the winds are creating a very uncertain, we're unable to tell what will happen at this point, and it is sad to report that it is at 0% containment at this hour.
So, Madam Mayor, we know because those winds are so strong and makes the fires so unpredictable and difficult to get ahead of. What's the latest you've heard from, frankly, whether it's meteorologists or officials there, as to the conditions throughout the day? Is there going to be an easing of these winds to make firefighters' jobs a little easier?
I mean, the prediction is that there's going to continue to be winds throughout today. And unfortunately, embers can travel up to a mile from a burning structure. And that's what creates, I think people often think that if structures burn in a line next to each other, as you can see, things will jump. And that's because those embers can blow in any direction with heavy gusts up to 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. And that's what we've seen, fires jumping across PCH and reaching the beachside. It's really tragic as to how fast and how broad it's traveled because of the heavy winds. And so that's the only thing that we're hearing is we're just monitoring the winds, but it's severe wind warnings right now everywhere. And we're just asking people to please listen to the evacuation orders to get your most crucial belongings and your loved ones. And for those of you that are not in those evacuation zones, to please charge your phones and get your flashlights ready. These are things we often don't have ready, and power outages will be going, possibly we will have power outages throughout the day.
All right, the mayor of Santa Monica, California, Lana Negretti, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. We'll be following this and hope to talk to you again soon. Let's go straight now to Malibu. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is there, and Liz is an example of the extreme unpredictability of this developing story. Liz has been separated from her camera. First of all, tell us why.
Hey, yeah, so basically, I just have to say, I've never seen anything like this here. I grew up in Southern California. This is like nothing we've ever seen, with multiple fires raging across the LA region right now. And here in Malibu, it's truly an apocalyptic scene. We're on the Pacific Coast Highway right now, where home after home after home, beachfront properties are engulfed in flames. I am looking at a mansion right now, a beach view mansion up in the hills. It's just basically exploded. And the reason we're separated from my crew right now is because we had just gone a little bit down the road to scope something out, and we turned around and there was then a live wire that had power line had fallen, and a live wire was blocking the road, and now it's blocked first responders. I mean, it's not, the most important thing now is that there are multiple fire trucks here that I'm looking at that are stalled and can't get through because this live wire is down blocking the road.
Unbelievable. So give us a sense in terms of what you know from your reporting about the damage to structures, how many structures, I know we really don't have a clear count, and where this fire has already spread to. Again, we can't really predict where it's going to go, but what do you know about what it's done so far?
Yeah, so this is the Palisades fire right now, and as of last night, the latest update from officials was that it was threatening 10,000 homes. They hadn't given a formal number of structures or homes that were destroyed, but we can tell you yesterday we saw multiple homes destroyed, and just this morning right now, I mean, it could be hundreds of homes. It is truly mass destruction that we are witnessing right now, and just firefighters just can't even get a handle of it. They're trying to put out some flames or stop flames from going to a nearby property, but they can't get a handle of it because there's these hurricane force winds that they're dealing with, and on top of that, they're stretched so thin because there are so many fires igniting around the area that literally the LA Fire Department has put out a call asking any off-duty firefighters to come here and help them battle this. We know thousands of people are evacuated right now. I mean, yesterday we were part of the hundreds of people that got stuck in the gridlock traffic trying to navigate and get out through the Pacific Palisades neighborhood, where we saw people literally just abandon their cars and try to flee on foot. And we were there as that bulldozer came through. My producer, Jim Cedar, took that video of the bulldozer coming through to pave a path to get those cars out of the way.
So Liz, the neighborhoods in harm's way here are nationally known, iconic neighborhoods, the Palisades, Malibu. We just had the mayor of Santa Monica, but the Palisades fire is, of course, not the only one. There's 3 or more raging right now. Can you just give viewers a little more sense of the geography here? Where is the threat coming from? And talk to about just why that makes the job so difficult for these firefighters, because there's so many different fronts.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's what we've covered really bad fires, unfortunately, before, but to just see multiple horrific, devastating fires all unfolding at the same time is what makes this so incredibly unique and truly horrific. And basically right now we're on the coast. We're in the Pacific Palisades, Malibu area for the Palisades fire. That's Santa Monica is potentially threatened, and part of that, as you guys just said, is under an evacuation order. But then you go east to Altadena and the Pasadena area. There's a fire there where thousands of people are evacuated. There's videos from a senior center overnight showing elderly patients being evacuated and brought in their wheelchairs onto buses. There's another fire just north of that, but also in East LA County in the Sylmar area where there's videos of people trying to put out flames as they rush to evacuate. This is widespread across LA, and even yesterday there was a small fire they were able to get a handle of quickly, but in the heart of LA, in West Hollywood, that shut down Sunset Boulevard, something you rarely ever see. So that's what we're dealing with here, and it's all due to these incredibly strong Santa Ana winds.
Yeah, Liz, I'm just looking at the map. I don't know if we can put it up, at the red flag warning, the fire danger that's really hitting this massive area through tonight, where 19 million people are at risk. And I wonder if there is a big picture plan, what the governor has said so far in terms of, I don't even know where they would put a command center, but where are they going to put all these people if these winds keep going, and how wide a swath of this area could this go?
All of those are such important key questions that I think everyone's trying to deal with right now. In fact, just yesterday, the staging area for the Pacific Palisades fire had to move twice. First, it was at one location where then the fire station engulfed in flames. It had to get moved to another location where then fire became so close they've now moved it further north. So that is how erratic this is. That is how fast it's moving. And I think they're trying to grapple with that right now, is how to deal with the fact that, right now we're talking about 3 big fires right now, but these winds are only supposed to pick up. We're told the worst may still be to come. We're still in the midst of this windstorm, which means we have a full day ahead of us with more fires that could ignite.
All right, we're going to be back on this very shortly and stay through it throughout the day here. NBC's Liz Kreutz, thank you. We'll talk to you again. New this morning in other news, President-elect Donald Trump has asked the Supreme Court to block his criminal sentencing that is set for Friday in New York over his 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Meanwhile, at a press conference at Mar-a-Lago yesterday, Trump suggested the U.S. retake the Panama Canal and buy Greenland. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest.
This morning, President-elect Trump is not ruling out using military force to retake the Panama Canal or acquire Greenland.
You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military.
The U.S. handed control of the canal back to Panama 25 years ago as part of a treaty signed decades earlier. But Trump says China's taken advantage.
China's basically taken it over.
And after first floating the idea during his first term, Trump is now ramping up his desire to buy Greenland for national security.
You have Russian ships all over the place.
The Danish prime minister insists her country's territory is not for sale, even as Donald Trump Jr. visits Greenland as a private citizen.
Just here as tourists, seeing it, looks like an incredible place.
Meanwhile, some of the comments made by his father coming with possible economic impacts for Americans. Trump vowing to slap tariffs on multiple countries, including Mexico, while suggesting renaming the Gulf of Mexico.
The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate.
Trump also repeatedly mocking the U.S.'s other top trading partner, Canada, joking it's the 51st state, and now suggesting using economic, not military force to annex it.
Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
Outgoing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responding, there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. And while Trump draws attention on the global stage, President Biden is speaking out in a new interview, telling USA Today that he believes he could have won the election in November. And asked if he would have had the vigor to serve 4 more years, Biden responding, I don't know. Who the hell knows? So far, so good. But who knows what I'm going to be when I'm 86 years old.
The journalist who conducted that interview, Washington. That's the headline. At USA Today, Susan Page joins us now. Susan sat down exclusively with President Biden for his only scheduled print interview as he finishes out his time in office. Also with us, former MSNBC host and contributor to Washington Monthly, and also speechwriter for President Jimmy Carter, which we will be talking about at length in a minute. Chris Matthews. But Susan, let's start with you. I was going to ask you what the headline was, but Gabe Gutierrez told us there. But so you this was published this morning at 4 a.m. This is the first time you've talked about it. There's a lot here. First of all, he sat down with you for an hour. Let me ask you the question that a lot of people would ask, and people asked me after I talked to him earlier last year. How was he? How was he physically? How was he mentally? How was he as far as his attitude goes?
So a 55-minute interview, that's pretty long for a presidential interview. He was engaged and lively. He was loquacious. He answered every question I posed. Some of them with reflection, some of them with some defensiveness. He looks older than he did the last time I interviewed him. When's
the last time you interviewed him?
The last time I interviewed him was before the 2020 election.
Okay.
So he's older now. His voice sometimes dips, so it's very soft, and you have to really strain to hear him. But he seemed mentally sharp, and we had a really far-ranging conversation.
So what we heard Gabe Gutierrez talk about, he wasn't sure where he would be at 86 and how he'd be. But what was the headline for you coming out of this 1 hour conversation?
Well, I think that was the newsiest thing he said, because he had never before, to my knowledge, ever acknowledged that if there was a possibility he wouldn't be able to fulfill a four-year term. Also, his statement that he believes he would have won if he had stayed on the ticket. That's not the conventional wisdom about what would have happened if he'd stayed on the ticket. And we've had source reports that that's how he felt, but I think this is the first time he ever said that out loud.
So, what about regrets? Because he finds himself in an interesting position. We've been talking today, and been talking this week about economic numbers. Ed Luce from Financial Times and others basically saying right now, economically, America is a colossus comparatively. China's in retreat. The EU is stagnant. Britain is stagnant. But the United States just keeps growing. So here you have, on one hand, the data, very strong, and history will probably judge him very well on that. And yet, there's such a sour mood, not only in America, but among Democrats, and not the exit that Joe Biden would have wanted. Yeah. What regrets? Did he have any regrets?
Well, I think his number one regret is that he's not going to be there for 4 more years. Because I think he was not. I had the last print interview with George W. Bush. He was ready to get out of the Oval Office. Not so much Joe Biden. He wishes he could stay there. But he named 2 things about his biggest disappointments. One was the difficulty in combating misinformation, including from Donald Trump. And the second thing he mentioned was their failure to act more quickly to get shovels in the ground from that huge infrastructure bill, because he says that would have demonstrated to Americans the value of that spending.
So talk about his meeting with Donald Trump. Obviously, these two attacked each other throughout the campaign in the harshest of terms. He even said that Donald Trump was bad for democracy or a danger to democracy, something along those lines. But you say, actually, he said a few complimentary things about Donald Trump.
Joe Biden told me that Donald Trump praised his economic record, said he was leaving a good record. Now, that's quite at odds with what Donald Trump has been saying out loud through the campaign and since then. And the other thing he said he urged Trump to reconsider his determination to seek retribution against people like Tony Fauci and Liz Cheney, that would be counterproductive for his own interests.
And what was the reaction?
He said that Trump didn't say he would take his advice, but he didn't say he wouldn't. He said he mostly listened. Mostly
listened. And his attitude as he leaves the office, is he embittered? Is he relieved? What's his mental state?
He was the most animated with 2 things. One, when he talked about his son Hunter's battle against addiction and the success he's had for several years in staying sober. And the second thing was when he revealed that his first great-grandchild is supposed to be born Today, by C-section, his granddaughter, Naomi. I'm not sure Naomi is delighted that her grandfather released that news.
Let's talk about Hunter Biden. Obviously, he's facing criticism, not only from Republicans and conservatives, but a lot of Democrats have gotten out and criticized President Biden for pardoning his son. Did he have any reaction to that?
He was, I think, defensive about the pardon. I think he made I asked him if he worried he was setting a precedent that a future president could abuse. He said, I hope not. But then he launched into a defense of why he decided to go back on the promise he's made for 4 years not to pardon his son. He said he determined that it was a miscarriage of justice, not justice, that he was being unfairly targeted for political reasons, and that's why he, at the end of the day, decided to pardon him.
I want to dig a little deeper on your hour with Joe Biden, and I want to dig deeper because it remains one of the just questions hanging over 2024, hanging over the Biden candidacy, hanging over so much. I've said on the show several times that I went in and talked to Joe Biden at length. Basically went around the world. He talked at length, in depth, about China, about Russia, about the Middle East, about the West Bank, about the settlements, about you name it. He took you around the world in a way that was very obvious over a long period of time. This is a guy who's been doing this for 40 years. And there aren't many people in Washington that understood the angles and the twists and turns with Joe Biden. And afterwards, I said that. I said it on the show in real time. He was slower. Sometimes he'd forget a name, and then, maybe Macron was Mitterrand, and then he would correct himself, which, by the way, I think I've done this on the show. But there remains this mystery, and I'm kind of dragging this out because if you go and you talk to people inside the Biden White House, and I'll just say, you talk to Jeff Zients. If you talk to people who have worked with Joe Biden, I'll just say, John Meacham. If you talk to people that have been with him for long periods of time, they will still tell you, to this day, despite all the noise out there, they'll still tell you they don't know what happened in that June debate. They're still, they're still frustrated by it, and they're all accused of some grand cover-up, when actually, behind closed doors, they're still asking what the hell happened. So you were there for an hour. There haven't been many journalists that have been with him for as long as you have. I don't know anybody that has on the record in a very long time. Help us with this mystery. Any insights?
This is the seventh administration I've covered. It's the seventh sitting president I've interviewed. And I've always thought presidents are well served by taking the risks involved in doing interviews and news conferences. And they don't always go the way they want. Mm-hmm. And you take some flack, and reporters can be, as you know, pretty annoying. But number one, I think, is part of your responsibility as being president. And number two, it keeps you in touch with voters. And number three, it keeps your skills sharp, right, about dealing with questions and by explaining to Americans why you're doing the things you're doing, projecting leadership. So I thought that Joe Biden, like previous presidents, would be well served by more contact with the press, not less, despite the risks that are involved with doing that.
Now, Chris, while I'm naming names, I'll continue to name names out of school and say that Mike Barnacle, from the beginning of this presidency, was angry that he felt that Joe Biden was being protected too much, that, advisors were trying to keep him away from the press because he may say Mitterrand instead of Macron. He may make a mistake here or there. He may have done what Ronald Reagan did in 85, 86, 87, and 88. And but I think Susan's exactly right. I think Joe Biden was ill-served by being cloistered off because he may have said something that wasn't quite right, which, by the way, he has been doing since 1974. So I'm curious your theory of the case here.
Well, I think the question is why was he protected during the Super Bowl when he was given a wide open opportunity to speak to the entire world?
Right.
A bigger audience than a debate, when he could have talked to a softer interview. He could have handled a tough question or two because most of it would be a roundup of good news for him. And what did he say to his advisors when he said, you can't do the Super Bowl interview, which everybody does? They must have said something to him. Oh, you can't risk it. Like you said, you might say the wrong name. You might say Mitterrand instead of Macron. But it wouldn't be like Jerry Ford saying Eastern Europe is free of the Soviet Union.
Poland, yeah.
It wouldn't be like that.
The thing is, though, Chris, by the time we got to the Super Bowl interview, which, again, was my biggest argument, people look back saying, oh, well, God, Joe Biden could have run and he could have won. I'm speaking now specifically of my wife. I said, they didn't even let him do the Super Bowl interview. Yeah. That tells you where they thought he was. But that was at the end of 3 years of him being cloistered up. I want to dig in a little deeper with what Susan's saying here, because we've seen it time and time again. When politicians are safe, right? When they want to have a primary with no opponents and the other side has 10 people scrapping and scratching and clawing, it's always a person that's in the battle, in the arena, fighting all along, that is sharpest.
Yeah.
And I just think, again, I just wonder what you think as a guy who was in the White
I can
House.
look at it for a number of years. Yeah. I've been journalist and I was a politician, working for politicians before. Why didn't he ever do an interview with the New York Times? Ever. The entire time.
Why do you think that is?
Because of the intricate quality of their interview. They would question him. They'd be probably tougher on him than any journalist. I don't know. But they're still angry about it. That's the publisher of the New York Times is still angry about it. You do interviews with the New York Times. It is the paper of record. And he didn't do it.
Right.
Why not?
Right.
Why didn't he get prepped for it? He gets prepped for... And why no press conferences or cabinet meetings since the fall of last year, 23? Well, what was that about? Why no meetings? Why no press conferences? There's a lot of patterns here that are not consistent with the performance he had with Susan. I mean, he's had a good day with you. He must have had a lot of bad days. And why was Anita Hill and the other people around him, why were they protecting him? And they were protecting him. And why? And he has to answer that question. They're going to answer the question because that question is not going to answer.
So let me ask you this. You're obviously, you live in Washington. You've heard these conversations. Around dinner tables, you've heard concerns. You've got Susan and myself, two people that have talked to him at length, and he was slower, but he certainly was sharp, and he knew the policy issues. What are you hearing? Were there good days? Were there bad days? Were there good times? Were there bad times? And again, I want to go to the debate, the night of the debate. Anybody that says to you they saw that coming is lying.
Okay, here's what I saw coming. Here's what I saw coming.
Did not see that coming.
In the 20 debate, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were waving their hands constantly, waving their hands at the camera. Let me talk. Let me interview. Let me do this. And all the time, Biden was sat there like a cigar store Indian or something. Why was he standing there doing nothing? He never participated in those debates. Maybe there's something about him and doesn't want to debate. I don't know what it is, but he didn't want to engage ever.
Right.
And everybody said, "Wait, aren't you the one that Jim Clyburn is going to throw it to in South Carolina? Aren't you going to win this thing?"
What's your theory on that?
I don't know. He doesn't want to engage.
Do you think he's incapable of engaging? I mean, that's 2020. He won the
Bernie
presidency.
thought he could do it, and Bernie knows how to jump to he's always quick with the tactics, and Elizabeth certainly loves to debate. Why didn't he want to debate? And this is well before the debate of the disaster of this June.
Yeah, I can't answer
And
that.
I think his own staff people say, well, you didn't want to debate back then when you had a couple people on the left you could have knocked off. Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you challenge them from the middle? Why didn't you do it? You're going to be the nominee, huh? Yeah. And I think it's a great question. And I don't know if we even the three of us can figure this out about Joe Biden and his decision about not wanting to debate. But he didn't debate in June.
Well, this is a question for historians, and I would love to. Everybody thinks there's this grand conspiracy. It was this grand conspiracy to hide him. I did not see that.
There was a clearance process for talking to the press.
Right.
There was a clearance process that went to Anita Dunn. There's nothing wrong with it, but everybody had to be cleared. You never heard from the cabinet during this guy's administration. Right. You never heard from them. Even like I knew the Kennedy cabinet better than this cabinet. Right. They hid these people because they wanted to have him out there with the aviator glasses being the superstar. And they wanted everybody else had to be quiet. The staff people in the White House never talked. This is interesting. The whole pattern of it was protect him. And I understand there's a reason for that. And it's smart people that know better than we do about his ability to communicate. They know every day how good he is every day, not just when he's ready for an interview with you or Susan, but every single day when they get on the phone. Tony Blinken calls from Moscow or somewhere and says, here's the latest on this, blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe he was really good at that. Knowing Putin and what Putin's up to, and figuring to go, I know what he's up to, and he has this smart, canny way of looking at that. But is he that good on television? No.
Yeah,
not that good on television.
You said that the smartest people knew better than everybody else.
They always do. And the guys on the inside always know better.
Mike Barnacle would say that they were too smart for their own good. And I'm not saying...
No, because Barnacle gets on the phone with him and he talks to him. Right. He has because he trusts him and he has a casual conversation. He speaks well. And then he says, oh, God, he's okay. Why don't they let him out? Let him out!
Right.
Because they know more.
Okay. I will tell Mike that the next time I see him. We need to... Historians are going to be, I think, going to be...
I think Meacham's going to look at this again, too, and see it from a wider angle. I mean, there's more there than meets the eye.
I will tell you this. I talked to John right before the debate as we're just putting this out, and never saw it coming. I mean, he had talked to Biden before the debate, and 5 minutes into the debate, it's like, what's going on?
Katzenberg didn't see it either. One of the big guys. Katzenberg, those guys were pushing him.
He didn't. Well, so Mika, we will continue this historic look back at 2024. I promise, maybe a year from now. I think Mika's had enough of this conversation.
No,
she still thinks he could have
I'll
run
have
and
been
won.
right. So I'm just going to wait for that conversation. So
Well,
thank you, Susan, for that.
You give your theory that you think he could have won.
Look, everyone knows how I feel. I made it very clear after the debate that I thought he should continue. But that was not what most people wanted. So, but Joe Biden is the kind of person who pulls himself up from rock bottom, and I think he could have stumbled into it. I really do. People responded very badly when he beat Trump during that campaign to Trump bullying him or going after his remaining son. People stood up for Joe Biden because they knew who he was. They know who he is. And I think an aging Joe Biden is very self-aware about that, and so is his team around him, and he's still 10 times more qualified than what we've got. And he's qualified to manage the world stage. I think after that disastrous debate, he did a news conference, remind me, Lemire, was it the NATO summit?
Yeah, a couple weeks later.
NATO summit was
at
Washington.
8 at night. And yep, he got names wrong. Yep, he had to correct himself a few times, but his knowledge of world affairs was in depth and clear and generated exactly what was the reality that this guy could manage the many different hotspots around the world. And people chose to, filters instead of reality, which was his good president who has historic presidency who was able to beat Donald Trump. End of story.
There you go. What's coming up next, Mika?
Coming up on Morning Joe. Coming up on Morning Joe, we'll have more on the devastating wildfires ravaging Southern California, as at least 80,000 residents have now been ordered to evacuate. We'll be right back.